Welcome to Blue Collar Mystics, the under-the-hood approach to the depths of human consciousness. So many mysteries, so little time, so many big words. That's why we aim to take the mystical and make it practical, usable in your everyday life. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your story. What happened when you started asking yourself the real questions? Like, who am I? What is this? Is it a hologram? Is this some kind of weird cosmic joke? Hey, these are the questions that we are trying to get to the bottom of as we explore the final rabbit hole together here as Blue Collar Mystics. Shout out on that groovy intro to my homie Skill Will, my homes, crushing that beat, and love the edit coming through. I'm really excited. Welcome, Mystics. We have a very special episode for everyone tonight. Someone that y'all are familiar with and somebody whose curiosity baffles even myself. One of my favorite creators is on the show tonight. And before we get started, I'm going to just plug a couple of things. I got a comedy show coming up in Jacksonville at Ruby Beach Brewing downtown with an awesome lineup. We're doing a Georgia, Florida mascot roast. I'm going to be the host, and I've got a killer lineup coming down for the cocktail party. That's going to be a lot of fun. If you're in Jacksonville, if you're going to the football game, check it out. Just announcing it right now, coming up, and just can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check that out. Also, my Patreon, I'm doing a course in real time with anybody who wants to participate on finding purpose, finding your true goal, figuring out your north, your why. We're just doing it together. I was just like, fuck it. I'm just going to get knee deep into it. Let's go. I've been studying this shit for 10 years. I think I have a decent handle on it. But even still, like, it's been fun to kind of go back through and take these processes back in, like tools from all these different places. So check that out. Patreon's blowing up. I've got like 99 new members or something in the past 24 hours. I'm fucking stoked. It's absolutely free. Come check it out. We'll go through it. I got chats for each module each day. I'm sharing my own notes so you can see the process and cheat off me if you want. That doesn't mean you don't have to do the work though. But just want to welcome everybody to check that out. A couple of things on my end there. That's all that's going on in my world. But I'm so excited to have Juan Ayala of the One-on-One podcast. Like I said earlier, really one of my favorite minds. And I'm so stoked to have him on because he's looked into some shit that is just fucking outrageous. And he's written some amazing comic books with Thomas Gorn's The Paranoid American, doing some really cool creative stuff. And I want to welcome you back. Juan, how you doing, my friend?
Thank you for having me on, dude. It's a pleasure, and I always enjoy our conversations. So glad to be here, dude.
Fuck yeah, dude. Thank you. Thanks for enduring the 2-minute and 45-second intro. Dude, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on, because I know you are always working on stuff. I know you got a banging Patreon over there, and also have been put out a bunch of cool shit with Thomas.
Yeah, so my website, tjojp.com. You can find all my stuff. And yes, I do have the Homunculus Owner's Manual. It's a Paranoid American collaboration. It's 33 pages of homunculus goodness, one-of-a-kind homunculus art, and it teaches you how to take care of your homunculus. Homunculus kit not included, as that's illegal here in Florida. And then I also self-published The Occultist Monday, which is a esoteric journal on occult topics inspired by Manly P. Hall's All-Seeing Eye, Horizon journals that he did back in the day. And the latest one is The Occultist Monday, 88 pages full of homunculus goodness. And this is the pre-homunculus to my homunculus book. So cool. So that's all in here. You can check that out on my website or on my Ko-Fi. And yes, we also have comic books because I am a mimetic magician. We do practice mimetic magic around here. It's the most effective type of magic, and it seems to resonate with people. So we got those. We got 1 and 2, and number 3 is coming out here soon. And I've had some weird stuff happen, dude. Practicing mimetic magic, some weird synchronicities, and some things that some people probably wouldn't believe if I told them. And so yeah, that's what I've been up to. I've been researching here and there. It's interesting that right, because I know you're into the hermetic principles and all that. I was putting together a presentation that I'm going to be doing on Patreon on Francis Yates and the hermetic tradition and Giordano Bruno, and how she talks about Hermes Trismegistus and all that stuff in there. So that's really pretty much what I've been up to, and just cranking out episodes every week and having a great time.
Dude, fuck yeah. That's really, really cool. Yeah. I'm excited. I didn't realize you were banging out a book on
It'll
the
come out
homunculus.
eventually.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Congrats. I love to hear that.
It's always easier said than done, right? It's on paper, it's always easier. It's one of those tasks where it's like my issue is I have esoteric ADHD, to where when I'm diving into a topic, I keep uncovering new new things relating to that topic, and then I just want to keep adding that, and then that's just a whole rabbit hole. And it's like sometimes you just got to send it, right? You're never going to be 100%. And I think that's why the alchemy resonates so much with me, because everyone finds their own way. You either take the wet path, the dry path, the Paracelsian path, the Flammarion path, the whoever, the Fulcanellian path, whoever, whatever. But the point is that magnum opus, right? And so that's something I struggle with, where I want to do to on your intro. It's like so many questions, so little time. It's like, damn, that is a big predicament of mine, where you want to be everywhere all at once, but you just don't have the time, you know?
It's fun to learn. It's fun to explore. And it's always exciting when unexpected things happen when you're on a quest. You're like trying to get to the bottom of something, and then something else comes up and totally changes your trajectory. And then you wind up chasing that rabbit, and then the next one and the next one. But I think that is part of the process. I mean, I think you're right too. Sometimes you just got to buckle down and be disciplined and just follow a path and be like, okay, this is, like I'm doing hermetic magic. I'm ordering my cape on Amazon today, or whatever it winds up being. Like for me, it was reality transurfing. That was like that. This is my fucking niche, weird, kinky, spiritual, model. But when you boil all these models down, I think they mostly just really mirror each other and almost entirely. Would you agree?
Yeah, and that's the thing about the Hermetica, right? Because as I was learning, and I've been reading through Frances Yates, which she actually she's one of my favorite authors, and probably one of the not so well known, because if anything, Manly P. Hall is more recognized than she was. And I consider Manly P. Hall, I consider him an occultist. He was an occultist. He was initiated into the mysteries. He even talked about it extensively. And the reason that he wrote The Secret Teachings of All Ages was because he had gotten initiated and traveled around and visited all the mystery schools, and he figured out the secrets, dude. He figured out the secrets that if you have a a sugar mama, that you
Yeah.
can do all this stuff. You can travel and all that. And he was receiving an allowance late into his life, and it wasn't like a little bit. It was from some oil heiresses. Is that how you would say woman?
Yeah. Like that had a bunch of money that was passed down to them through probably a king or some duke or whatever, royalty.
It was weird. I guess they liked him in some sort of way, and they took a liking to him. And when they passed, they left a section for him, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, dude. It wasn't. It dried up towards the end of his life, allegedly, but it was a lot of money. So he had the time to ask all. They never had kids or anything, so just traveling around, learning the secrets of the secrets. But the esoteric and the occult is one of those things. It's the gift that keeps on giving. Right, and it's like it just leaves you with more questions than answers a lot of the times. And sometimes I'll be reading a lot of this stuff, and it's like is it all BS? Is it, how much of it is encoded in this cryptography, this language of the birds type of stuff? And it's like, are you wasting your time? Is there secrets? Like, is there such thing as the secrets to the universe? And the thing about the Hermetic, right? Uh, the I learned that some people even, right, they put Hermes Trismegistus in the bloodline of Moses, right? And there was this argument of, did Hermes come before Moses? Was he pre-Moses or was he post-Moses, or was he later on in the line? And they're talking about how Hermes Trismegistus predicted Christianity, and like he was talking about the one and the Son of God and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, they don't really teach us that in Sunday school. Like the Christianity we have now is so watered down. It's not esoteric anymore, right? It's like this other version of whatever the hierarchy is presenting to us, but it comes down from this lineage of occult and magic. And one of the reasons why I don't put this stuff down, for as much as people want to bash it, because I put out a short the other day about gnosis, because the Gnostics were really influential in my research, and they're super interesting, right? The early Christians. And some dude was like, "Kids, this is what drugs do." And I was speaking about gnosis. I was speaking about these ancient mystery schools. I was speaking about the Platonists and the theory of forms, and I was speaking about the people who influenced the major world religions today. I wasn't saying any unhinged woo-woo stuff of like, oh, well, the homunculus, is actually a butt plug or something like that. I wasn't saying anything. I was like just talking about the principles of gnosis. And the guy's like, well, this is what drugs do to your brain, kids. And I'm like, if drugs will make me talk about cosmology and ancient religion, give me more, bro. You know what I'm saying? Because this is such a fundamental part of our existence, dude. Right? And that's why I can't put it down, because for as much as people want to believe it's all woo woo, these symbols, these beliefs, this whatever, the occult magic, the esoteric, whatever, has always been at the forefront of any people's, right? The paintings on these ancient cave walls, a lot of the times the reason that they did that, there's always been a shaman class, right, that was always in charge of interacting with deity, going into different altered states of consciousness to interact with these things. And the reasons that sometimes they would paint these pictures of these animals on the walls was to call forth those animals so they would appear. Mimetic magic, bro.
Yep.
Like attracts like. So they were painting whatever, a deer or an elk, whatever, and it was to call upon in a sympathetic, magical way how that image was linked to the thing. That's the theory of forms, bro. There is a perfect version
Yep.
of this thing in this realm, right? As above, so below. There's a perfect version of that rabbit you're looking at, right? The rabbit you're chasing. There's the perfect version on the other side, simulacra and simulation type of stuff, the hyper reality of things. So I don't put down the esoteric or the occult or anything like that, because at the end of the day, to me, it's philosophy, right? It's about understanding, and you're into asking yourself, who are you? What are we? Where are we? These are all fundamental questions that have been asked since the beginning of time. And in God we trust, right? The foundation of this country, if it was the God that we all agree upon. Everyone thinks it's the Judeo-Christian God, the Christian God. In God we trust. You sure about that? You sure about that? You don't know if they were worshiping what I call miscellaneous gods, right? A lot of the founding fathers were mystics, Freemasons, Rosicrucians, whatever. Dude, the Knights of the Golden Circle assassinated Lincoln. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is heavy. There, people put it down, but it's like, bro, there's people in power. The king right now, right? The king with his little sausage hands. He LARPs with a crown and a cape and a specter and all this shit. To them, it's not make believe. To them, it's something real. And that crown and that specter and that cape have been passed down for generations. So that's why I don't put down the occult, even if it is this endless rabbit hole, because it's at the forefront of quite literally, in my opinion, everything. And pretty much anything that the golden throne that you sit on gelato was created by an alchemist, bro, who was an alchemist for the Medicis, Catherine de Medici. He created gelato by accident, and they had a competition for the best, whoever can make the best dessert. And this alchemist dude comes out and he blows their lids back. He's like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing! Boom, we got gelato from an alchemist."
Damn, that's some good weed.
Yeah, the the
One of my favorite strains.
porcelain that we have in the on our golden thrones that we all shit on every day was created by an alchemist by mistake. Because you know what he was trying to do? He was trying to create the Philosopher's Stone, and he accidentally created porcelain. And guess who he was buddies with? Leibniz, the father of binary code. That's the ones and zeros in our computer.
Damn.
He was traveling around Europe because he was obsessed with transmutation stories. So he was collecting stories all over Europe, traveling around trying to figure out how to do the magnum opus. That to me is pretty influential, bro. I mean, all these guys, and you tie in technology and everything else all in there. What the hell are they do? What are they doing at CERN, bro?
I couldn't tell you, buddy.
Neither could I.
I wish I could. But like, yeah, I mean, the magnum opus, that's probably what they're trying to do, I would assume, whatever I suppose their interpretation is of that. Like, that may vary person to person, but that is interesting that is a motivation for such high levels of creativity, regardless of what other things come of it. Like, if they're accidentally stumbling upon incredible inventions and, revolutionary ideas, then it certainly seems like the evidence would show that it's worth the pursuit.
That blows my mind, dude. That right here we have within Isaac Newton, who was obsessed with alchemy, who was obsessed with the Temple of Solomon, bro. He was creating sketches and models of the Temple of Solomon, and they hid that away. They hid that away from the public view. And here, right, Isaac Newton, it's like one of the biggest names in physics and whatever else, right? And he's like, here he is contemplating. He actually predicted an end date of the apocalypse. He was an avid. He wrote commentaries on the Book of Revelation. He was an avid reader of the Book of Revelation. He was obsessed with it as well, and he actually predicted that the end of the world would be, I believe, in 2040 or 2045. He did the math, bro.
Damn.
He did the math.
That's like the singularity numbers, right?
Yeah. But nobody talks about that.
It's possible. It's quite possible. That seems pretty spot on.
Yeah. So again, that's why I don't put it down, because like I said, right, it's fun to learn. I've always been this history buff. And then when, what really opened the floodgates for me was the whole religion thing. And I was like, wait a minute, there's the story that I learned, the opposite exists. So how is mine the one? Right? Like I always tell people, I believe in God.
Right.
I don't believe in religion. I think religion is a man-made construct. It's another way of putting people in an altered state of mind to keep them suppressed. There's people who will pull over in traffic to pray because they were taught that, right? So you're doing these rituals that they taught you, and the only reason you're doing them is because you were just born with it, right? And then questioning those doctrines is heresy. It's blasphemous. So what a great system that they've come up with to pretty much back itself up, right? It's like, well, I don't know if you've ever seen the memes of like WD-40, or like the memes where it's like, no, no, right? You keep following the no, where it's like, yes, and then it goes back to no. So it's like you're in this cycle of like, you can't question it. And once I was able to break free from that, I was like a kid at a candy shop, because I'm like, what is all this? Alchemy? What? Solomonic goetic magic, a Jungian alchemy, this, that. I'm like, what is this? And it's like, dude, I feel like I've always said we all have the pieces of the puzzle. We're all touching the same elephant, but we're just touching different parts of it. And hey, what works for you might not work for the other one. Or, right, cultural influences. The way that you saw something is completely different than somebody else in Japan is seeing it, right? But they're talking about the same things. But yet we disregard it, or oh no, that's completely different. So you know what, dude? I think that I don't know if we're ever gonna really find the answers to it all, but I'm here for it, bro. I'm gonna study and learn as much as I can, and we'll find out when we pass on to that other realm.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out. We'll be like, damn, here I am in heaven or in hell, wherever, chilling somewhere. It's like, damn, they were right. Or like my dad died 4 times, bro. And I asked him, I'm like, did you see anything? He's like, I didn't see anything.
Nothing.
Nothing, dude. He was out for 45 minutes.
Huh.
In and out 4 times. He doesn't remember anything. He's like, I went in, and then he had the heart attack at the hospital. So that's what saved him. If he would have been at home, he would have been dead. He was screwed. It was real bad. But they kept him in and out for 45 minutes. But he was considered dead 4 times. And I asked him, I'm like, dude, so did you see Satan? Did you see Jesus? Did your life flash before your eyes? Nothing. And I don't know what's closer to a near-death experience than that. You know what I'm saying? Like that in itself. So was he not tuned to the right frequency? Is he not spiritual enough? Was it not his time? Therefore, he didn't see anything. Like, I don't know. I don't know. But I know somebody who died. And I asked him, and he said it was black. I woke up. I pretty much went to sleep and I woke up. I'm like, damn. What if it is all fake and gay, Owen?
Dude, it possibly is. I mean, the simulation idea to me just becomes more and more plausible as time goes on. And I think there are some like sort of magical controls emotionally. I think all the stuff out here, essentially, it's just like this playground that you can explore at your whim and go down any of these rabbit holes. And that's why, in the intro of the show, it's like the final rabbit hole, it's like the self. I mean, what else
your
is
hole?
There? Right, exactly. You're gonna find out. That's right. But yeah, I mean, I think ultimately that's kind of the fun part, and like it all comes back down to a Bill Hicks bit,
I think the answer is God, right? So at the end of the day, you figure out like, oh, everything else is BS, and just turn yourself, over to God.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, even that's kind of like, what is God? Who is God?
Mm-hmm.
Are we gods? Then you can break that down, and it go, no. Well, if yes, then refer back to no. It's like it goes back in this circle, and it's like it's comical in some sort of way. It's the divine comedy, right? It's this it's kind of sad too, right? Because it's like since the beginning of time we've been asking these questions, and we have all this syncretism between all these religions, and this god turned into this god, and then these people got taken over by these other people, so they took their god over, and it's like, bro, what? Even Isaac Newton, or he was studying chronology, and he's like, something's not adding up. There is the script. I don't know if you've ever looked into Flamenco's work.
Mm-mm.
But he is a chronologist, but he's a mathematician, and he broke down mathematically how they added, I think it's like 1,000 years to our timeline. And a lot of the stories that we hear about different messiahs and different Roman kings and emperors and all this stuff, they all repeat. Now, this guy's written extensively about this, so I'm not going to be able to summarize his entire 8 volumes of probably 10,000 pages or something crazy like that. But what I love about Flamenco's work is that he gives you a visual. he does this chart, and he does, the time in the center, and then he does this chart of all these different people, and he kind of like graphs it out, and you can see that it's almost identical. It changes here and there every now and again, but a lot of the kings, they're like mirrors of each other, bro. The emperors, and the story of how this guy came into power is the same one as this other one, but they're like 300 years apart. So it's like, what? And then their names kind of sometimes match up too. It's bizarre, dude. It's crazy. So I'm like, how much of history is fabricated? Like, how much can we trust that? But sometimes, like, I want to put that down, and I'm just like, let me just take it for what it is, right? Let's not judge. Let's not cast judgment. Never judge a book by its cover, right? And just take the material for what it is and interpret it any which way you can, and just have fun. Because once you start getting lost in the sauce, you're gonna go insane, dude.
I think so too. Yeah, that's kind of what happened. I got close to going insane, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna have to accept reality. I got to quit fighting against it. Like, I think there are rules to the video game, if we want to make that analogy. And then once you learn what those rules are, instead of beating your head against the wall and trying to be like, it shouldn't be like this, this is unjust, and it's not right, and doesn't align with my vision, then you're like, fuck it, dude, I give up. I fucking surrender to the rules. And then you can play the game for what it is, maybe a little bit more objectively, and I don't know, maybe that's part of this whole alchemical thing, is sort of allowing yourself to conform to the world. There's a couple of quotes from Self-Reliance by Emerson that come to mind. One being where he's got a guy who's questioning him and his motives about being self-reliant and deriving whatever it is from within, like acting from God. And he says, what if these impulses that you're having are from below and not from above? And then Emerson's response to that is, well, if I'm the devil's child, then the devil's child I'll be. You know what I mean? Like, I can't help my nature. I'm going to express it regardless of what it is, even if it's considered to you to be evil or whatever by your standards. He's like, I know what you're going to tell me no matter what, because you basically have one hand over one of your eyes, and you have to respond to whatever my question to you is in the church's terms and what their doctrine is, not your own. So, he kind of like gets into that a little bit. And I tend to agree with that. It's like, what can you do? Like, at a certain point, it's like fighting so hard against something that what's essentially like, I think, what's the point,
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I've gotten there too, dude. Like, I've trust me, I've been there, done that. And it's like, sometimes you're not gonna have answers to questions. Like, what were the 1,000 bottles of lube for?
Right.
Owen? Like, what?
That's a good question.
Who would need that much baby oil?
Right. Right.
How do you order that much baby oil?
You trying to like resurrect some mummies in the basement? I'm not real sure.
What are you doing, bro?
But the funny thing about it is that's not illegal, right? Like, my buddy Nate Ball. Like, what's illegal about having 700 dildo? That's not illegal. It's like,
I thought this was America,
right? That's not illegal. You can have as much baby oil on hand as you possibly want. Who knows,
But how bizarre, Owen, is that?
Maybe he's having some wrestling matches and shit. I mean, that's possible, right? Like, isn't that how they do the Jello wrestling? They just do like pools of baby oil. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate a little bit, which I shouldn't on true devil's advocate. Couldn't be any more, but yeah, I couldn't tell you though, like, why you would need any of those things. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
And after the fact, now everyone that's the talking point that everyone's talking about now. But it's like, how much deeper does it go?
Yeah.
And the problem with these conspiracies, and because I kind of clump in like the esoteric and the occult with conspiracies too, because, but at the same time, the thing with the occult and the esoteric is that there's a historical background to it, right? So we have these books. I mean, that's pretty much all we got is books, writings, and if we're being for real, the Bible and any religion, those are the strongest forms of mimetic magic because they're only held together by writing. They're only held together by letters.
Mm-hmm.
And quite literally, right? The Gospels were letters and all this stuff, but they're quite literally just letters, that were put together, and they translated it and they put it out, and then people accept that 100%. Now, I'm not here to bash religion. I'm not here to discredit religion, but ask yourself, it's like, what else do we have other than these writings? And I'll be the first to say, I've experienced the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. I've experienced it, but I can't tell you if that's malevolent or benevolent, whatever, good or evil. I couldn't tell you. I just know that it's a force of some kind. And when it's around, it's felt because you're tapping into, what they call subtle energy, essentially, and the manipulation of that set energy. And when you experience it, because I was part of the worship group for a lot of years. So I saw a lot of things, and I was part of the worship group. So we're the ones that are at the forefront of pretty much bringing forth this thing and putting the congregation in this altered state, which is worship.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's going, bro, it's going. You feel like it goes hard and it goes deep. No diddy, and there's something to it. So I'm not throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying, "Oh, it's all fake and gay," because I've experienced it. Like
Sure.
I've felt it, right? So it's coming from a place of, because I'm the biggest skeptic there is, dude. You know what I'm saying? I'm the biggest skeptic there is, and that's part of why I also read and research and do all these things. It's like, the homunculus. And that's why I dove so hard into it, because you start looking at modern day technology and you go, okay, so they're creating artificially grown calves and lambs, in these artificial matrices. Who's to say that perhaps these alchemists that were writing about these things couldn't at one point, for even a split second, emulate the right conditions to create something like that? We know that there's test tube babies. We know this is something in the 21st century that we can all witness together.
Mm-hmm.
What's a couple hundred years, or 300, 400, whatever back then? What if you could emulate those conditions for a split second and do the same thing? I've never tried to grow a baby out of in a vessel. I don't know what happens. Have you ever tried it? I've never tried it.
I wouldn't know.
So how
Nope.
would you know what happens? You know what I'm saying? Like you don't. So there is that curiosity there, that factor of like the what if, or these guys were full of shit and they were just trolling you and writing these stories. But point being that there was more than one reporting the same thing in different time frames. Right? So is it a form of technology? Did they get lucky once or twice? Like, what's going on? And that's why it's like, I can't prove to you that the homunculus is real, but here's the here's the historical writings of it. And then fast forward to 2024 in Israel, dude, they created a chimera. They created an artificial embryo. And according to the laws, when you have an embryo that you're messing with, and by the way, the first hybrid clone was half man, half cow in 1999, I think it was, or 98. 1999, 98. The first hybrid was half man, half cow. The law says that after 14 days, you have to get rid of the embryo, right? If they're in a lab setting, you got to get rid of it after 14 days. You don't think somebody's pushed that envelope before? You think that
I'm
the
sure.
people making the rules were like, all right, let's whip it out. Let's make sure you got rid of all these embryos. So what they did in Israel, right, out of all places, was they always find a loophole for, like, they act like God's some retard that's like, oh, well, if you stay within these lines, right, you're good, right? Like what? Have you seen those people that they can't use heavy equipment, so they make like a platform on the back of the forklift and then they operate it with like super long levers because their God or their religion says that they can't operate the heavy machine? Bro, what? this all-powerful entity. You're trying to play this all-powerful entity, interdimensional entity that created all of reality by some stupid loophole.
Right.
What?
Yeah, it
So
doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Yeah.
in Israel, they created a synthetic embryo. Now, there's a gray area there because it's not human. So therefore, there's no laws against how long I can keep this alive for.
Hmm.
So use your imagination.
That's
I
weird. My
mean,
question, I have two questions. Is it technically Jewish, and is he circumcised? You know, like these are the things that inquisitive minds want to know about the chimera, you know. No, but that's crazy, dude. I mean, we've seen all this kind of yeah, weird technology kind of
always
come up.
repeats itself.
Yeah, and so if that's possible today, if we went back, you know, a couple of 100 years, there's and if there's so much writing on it, like why is there so much writing on this? Why is this so studied and emphasized and talked about? Like it's the creepiest thing. Like it just makes me think of Chucky, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chucky is another one. So Chucky was, you know, the spirit of this killer done through voodoo magic, right? Vodun, where in voodoo, what they do is they invoke the deity within the vessel, which is you. So when you make the sigil, you're invoking that deity, and then that deity comes into you, and they call it riding the horse.
Hmm.
And that's, you know, demonic possession sort of stuff. But that goes back into Mesopotamian times, Egyptian times, where the Egyptians were animating statues. You know, Hermes was also writing about animating statues. You know, St. Augustine was like, this guy was this guy was a heretic. This guy was working with demons, like all this sort of stuff. And it's like the same thing over and over again
Right.
in just a different aspect. And to me, dude, there's an evolution of magic, and the creation of chaos magic was to where it's like, hey, we don't got to do any of this ceremonial mumbo jumbo. Just throw all that out. All you need is intent and will, and just make it happen. So that to me is one of the most powerful forms of magic, chaos magic, because you don't need any of the other bullshit. You just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you just put your mind to it and you do it.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, with guys like Crowley, Parsons, who was literally a rocket scientist, right? Who was literally a rocket scientist, who was highly steeped into the occult, was balls deep into the occult, was in the desert with L. Ron Hubbard jerking off on some parchment, trying to summon the whore of Babylon to incarnate into this reality. And some people believe he did it.
Kamala Harris.
He's
You got her.
Hillary Clinton, like all, you
Right.
know, all,
Yeah.
Donald Trump, like all these
Right.
other, like he brought in, you know, this either a new age or something. You know, Marjorie Cameron was his second wife, and they say that she was, you know, this redheaded woman, and she was the this homunculus that he brought into existence and manifested into existence. And also, you know, the whole Trinity site and how allegedly the government was trying to radioactively create a homunculus within that big jumbo container that was there too. And it's like, if these guys are writing about this, right? We know that we have the whole Robert Monroe stuff with the
Mhm.
CIA and the classified documents and how, you know, hemisync and going into the astral realm. And if you read all of, you know, Robert Monroe's stuff, what he was seeing, I was like, was he, but again, it goes back to source. Trust me, bro. You know, I can write anything.
Sure.
Any of us can write anything.
True.
How can you prove it? You know, I think that falls into, you know, phenomenology where it's an experience, back to gnosis, where it's like it's an experience that you experience. I can't experience it for you. I can't tell you if you saw Bigfoot in the woods or not. I can't tell you if if you see a UFO. I've seen a UFO, and I know that I don't know what the hell I saw. It was flying. I wasn't alone. The people with me saw it too. We don't know what it was. That's a UFO. So it's like, I think reality is a lot more malleable than we're presented. And the issue nowadays is there's so many people glued to the news, glued to social media. And when you're on these platforms, the world's burning, right? Like the world's ending. It's the end
Mhm.
times. And people love fear porn, dude. They
Yep.
love it. They thrive on that shit. People want the world to end. Like there's a group of people who are literally, you ever seen that show Doomsday Preppers?
Yeah, yeah, I know that show.
Can you
Yeah.
imagine like li living your life to prepare for the next? That's Christianity. That's any religion. There's people who blow, bro. I was talking to somebody on the phone about this week. There's people who blow themselves up
Mhm.
for their religion. Allahu Akbar. Boom. Why do you do that? Well, he believed he was gonna get pussy, bro, in
Right,
the
right.
astral realm.
I know. I
Pussy
know.
and religion are some of the most toxic things in this reality. Change my mind. You know what I'm saying? Change my mind. Literally, these people who will kill themselves for their religions and others for something written down hundreds of years ago that might be fake and gay. That's why I believe in God and not religion. I think
Yeah,
religion's toxic, bro.
I tend to agree with that. I think anything organized into a structure is ultimately subverted, right? And used and exploited to take advantage of people. But I will say this, I think the words themselves, the principles in a lot of these works, I don't know much about the Muslim religion or I know quite a bit about Christianity. I was also in the fundamentalist church and I saw some stuff too. I've experienced the Holy Spirit. We used to get drunk on the Holy Spirit. We'd have
Those
parties.
Pentecostal, bro. So they're
It was
doing backflips.
Yeah,
They're
100%.
speaking in tongues.
Oh, I
They're
know it.
I remember one
I
time I was
still
getting prayed over, and the dudes, people faint when they're or
Oh, yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And the dude's praying over me, right? The calling. They always do a calling at the end of the service, and the dude's praying over me, and I feel that motherfucker pushing on my head, bro. And he's just like trying to knock
Mhm.
me over,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
I'm
Using
just like
NLP too.
I'm pushing back, dude. I'm just like, and he just moves on to the next person,
Mhm.
like, and it's like, I guess if you submit, it'll happen, but are you cheating yourself? Like, what was it really God that was it the Holy Spirit that touched you? Like, what was it? Right? You're LARPing. That's all you're doing. You're playing pretend.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is, right? Like, I think the game is to just have as much fun in your LARP as is humanly possible. It's all about the presentation. When you get to the end of it, I think it's just the same. It's just like, what little fun, little ritualistic magic trick or celebratory kind of expression do you prefer? You know?
What flavor you
Right.
prefer?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
It's all going to use the dad joke, right? Like, it's all going to the same place, you know what I mean? It's like, just put it in yeah, it's all right. The grits touch the mashed potatoes, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I think that part of it, like I said, part of it is like that. Right. So I think that all religions, mirror each other. And I'm putting together this presentation uh, of this idea during the 16th century of, was Jesus a homunculus, right? There was guys that were arguing about, and this is not my idea. It's not my, these are from writings from the 1500s. Okay. It comes to show you that people were asking questions back then too.
Well,
And
they
it was
didn't have media, right? Like, so they probably were left a lot more to their own devices. Like,
yes.
looking back, like, all the sexual stuff is pretty wild. That's just, like, etched on pottery and shit.
Yeah.
Like, people
Yeah.
just, like, jizzing into dogs' mouths and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't make it, you know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
didn't make that pottery, but, like, they had to be doing something. They must have been kind of bored, you know? They didn't have porn, I guess, you know?
Yeah, yeah, right. And they were a little bit more liberal. But these guys, right, the guys that were arguing this weren't just any regular Joe Schmo. They were like literally church doctors. Like there were doctors of the church. And there was this guy who specialized in the paradoxes in the Bible. So like, why is this like this? But then over here it says this other thing and it kind of contradicts itself. So what's really going on? And there was another guy that was like, listen, bro, to the Holy Spirit, nothing is impossible. And it's like, oh, well, you ever get asked what the definition of a word is and you give the definition with the word in the definition?
Mm,
That doesn't work,
right.
right? You can't do that.
Circular reasoning.
Exactly. So they were doing that, but this guy was asking like, "Hey, following these principles, marry this, marry that, and blah, blah, blah. She was a hermetically sealed vessel, and she had just enough menstrual blood to create a miniaturized version. So what does that make Jesus? A homunculus. They're like, if we follow the principles, right, it's a homunculus. Now, I'm not saying that he is or wasn't, whatever, but these are thoughts and ideas of somebody from 400 years ago that was asking questions. And right, let's say that these are the people that we know who wrote it down, who are questioning it openly. And I think that was like these old books in Latin were what I consider the Twitter wars of back then, bro. They were like, you know what? I'm about to lay this motherfucker out. And he just starts writing, bro. And this beautiful calligraphy of like, here's the big B for bitch, when I'm writing. And then they're just going on, dude. And there's just tomes of this stuff. Just tomes of this stuff. And it's like, we're not translating it. And who really has the time to look into that sort of stuff, right? To really extract the knowledge that's hidden away, that's locked away, that's frozen away. How Philip K. Dick talked about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Nag Hammadi documents, that it was frozen knowledge, and that once the reason that the Gnostics were taken, that was one of my favorite theories. The reason that the Gnostics were taken out was because they were corrupted by this informational parasite. Whoa! I imagine information as a living entity, language as a living as a virus, like William Burroughs talks about that, where if you look at the way that language, where we're talking about religions syncretizing with other religions, well, language is at the core of that. And language, a lot of the words that we use today are literally carcasses and corpses of other languages that are being continued to just be reanimated. And Friday was Freya Day, right? Which was this old Nordic god, Monday, Moon Day, Sunday, Thursday, Thor's Day. Mm-hmm. What? Why are we honoring these old gods with our language? Right? If language is so powerful, how we all say it, literally, whenever you say a day of the week, you're invoking this Nordic entity, essentially, is what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? So this concept of like language being this virus that, and I love the way that this esotericist put it, Tommy Cow, when he was on my show. This guy's getting his I believe his PhD in some sort of esotericism. And he talked about how it's like, well, language uses you like a parasite. And then once it's done with you, it goes on to its next host and it continues to evolve. And it feels like we're there now with like people who speak in this new, like is it Gen Z, whatever the new gen, lol, like they speak in emojis and stuff like that. Like, what? That's the evolution of the language virus. And what it's doing is, in my opinion, it's delivering the meaning of something quicker. So when you abbreviate LOL, what does that stand for? Laugh out loud. But you're not having to type out laugh out loud. It's just boom, 3 letters versus however many letters. So you get straight to the point. And you know exactly what I mean when I say LMAO. You know what I'm saying? Like, exactly what I'm saying, bruh. And it feels like there's like this, it's the language is degrading, and they're trying to compact it into this I don't know, this thing. But
like Newspeak, from 1984, essentially,
yeah,
creepy, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, I mean, I think, you're talking about conspiracy and spirituality, and I think they go hand in hand, right? Because like the occult is hiding knowledge, and then conspiracy is essentially trying to figure out what knowledge is being hidden, right? Like, it's
funny how that works, right? It's like, if it's no, then go back to yes, and if it's yes, then go back again to no.
We're like speculating about what are they hiding? Because I know it's something.
And then we always get fed like what really gets to me is, right, you want to discredit all this stuff. And what really gets to me is the fact that every now and again we'll get a little drop of something, that everyone was, Alex Jones was right. The frogs were gay, like. And the weirdest things too, right? Literally, study shows that the frogs are turning homosexual. And he said that in the form of, he became a what? He became a meme. And people ran with that. Like, oh, here he is. I have a sound bite of it on my soundboard. They're turning the frogs gay. Turned out he was telling the truth. And so when things like that get proven, like I've always said, people are stuck in their own reality tunnel, and it just solidifies that effect even further, dude. Where they're just like, yeah, here I am in my echo chamber already. The frogs were gay. Right. Alex Jones 1, the cabal 0. Like, and it just solidifies and keeps people in that state of mind. Like, dude, like for example, we're having the hurricane hit Florida. Hurricanes have been around for a long time. Okay. And I can't imagine back then when they didn't have radar. Imagine you're just chilling with your family outside, trying to have a barbecue, and this gust of wind just rolls in with a rain cloud. You're like, wasn't expecting rain. Turns out it's a Category 4 hurricane, and you get obliterated. Do you know how many people have died? They're like, there's stories of people who anchor their boats like offshore and went into their boats to wait out the hurricane. They ended up dying, bro. That was happening in the early 1900s with Henry Flagler and all these guys that were starting Florida when they were doing the railroad over to the Keys. These storms would hit, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll just tie up the boat," and I just waited out on the boat. Famous last words, because a lot of people lost their lives that way. So I'm seeing all these videos of like people, you see, they're creating these hurricanes. And this hurricane just happened to go the same route that this hurricane in 1937 went. It's like, what? So now hurricanes are fake and gay too, bro? Like, when do you stop? You know what I'm saying? Like, when do you stop? Like, when do you look at it from a rational perspective of like, these things have been around for a long time? And I'm not saying that they don't manipulate the weather. I'm sure they do that. But if these people, and by these people, I don't know if they're the reptilian elites or they're homunculus. I think they're homunculus. These people all run these huge companies, right? These huge insurance companies and all this stuff. Why would they make themselves pay out more money to the people, right? Because when you do an insurance claim, it's the money's going to you, right, to cover the cost of a new roof or a new whatever. Why would they do that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why would they? Like, that never made any sense to me. Yeah, they're creating these hurricanes to what? To cause havoc and destroy places that then later these huge insurance companies have to pay for. Makes no sense. So it's like, not in my opinion, not everything is a conspiracy, but people, sometimes there's not enough evidence for a person who refuses to believe. And some people, dude, will refuse to believe just because.
Yeah.
Just because. And I think those are the worst kind of people, bro. Like,
yeah, by default, yeah.
Like I taught my son, like he told me, oh, well, first of all, now my son, who is doing karate, he actually got first place in his first tournament a couple weeks ago in his division, sparring. And the dude can fight, right? So now I'm not too worried about him getting bullied at school. But once upon a time, he was telling me that somebody was calling him a poopy head, right? And he's like, "Hey, Dad, this kid keeps calling me a poopy head." Right now, I tell him now, just punch him, kick him in the head, right? Whatever. He'll fuck a kid up. I'm telling you, bro. He'll fuck a kid up. So I taught him that. He's like, "Oh, he's calling me a poopy head." All right. So what you're gonna do is, when he calls you a poopy head, you're gonna say, "I know you are, but what am I?" He's like, "I know you are, but what am I?" And then what if he says it again? Say it again. "You're a poopy head." "I know you are, but what am I?" "Well, you're a poopy head." "I know you are, but what am I?" And he's like, "What do I do?" Keep going. Until he gives up. But it's like a child, right? Trying to process. like how to turn things around. And his wheels were turning like, where's he going with this? And then he finally caught him like, oh, I can just keep it going until the dude gives up or gets tired of calling me a poopy head or whatever it is. And it's like I taught him how to, hack the matrix. So now these kids are like, you're a poopy head. Like, well, I know you are, but what am I? And he's just gonna keep them in that endless feedback loop. He's like, you just keep it going, bro. And if all else fails, fucking punch him in the head. Like I can't tell you anything else, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like the dude's got some speed and power, so I'm not worried about him in that department. But yeah, kids.
Yeah, that's hilarious, dude. I wish for once someone would call me a poopy head. That is the cutest fucking slur I've ever heard in my life. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh my God, that's adorable. Yeah, I mean, and I think too, when he realizes that, there used to be sting when someone would call you a poopy head. You know what I mean? Like it would make you get upset and like trigger you,
Well, you and I were talking about this, right? That nowadays words are everything.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
Even
These
poopy head has like a connotation of
somewhere. Did you just assume my identity? Like what I was, like nowadays it's funny that we're back again to that. These characters that you put out on X can change your life, or something that you say on a video. Hawk 2 on that thing can change your life. Well, maybe, if you're Jewish, it'll give you this entire huge platform and millions of viewers and millions of dollars, right? By simply saying some dumb thing on a video that went viral on the internet. And it's like words now are at the forefront of everything, how they've always been. And, the whole concept of informational warfare, the info wars, it's always been about information, dude. Goes back to the story in the Garden of Eden, where God was a troll and he's like, listen, you can have any of these fruits, dog. Any of them. You got a fig tree here, you got this here, you got that there. They're all for the picking. All except for one. And I'm gonna put it right in the middle, right there.
And it's kind of the worst one, too. Apple? Dude.
It wasn't who said it was an apple, bro. It was never.
No one said that?
The Mesopotamians thought it was a date fruit. And there's depictions of the Mesopotamian, their story of creation, where they're picking it from a date fruit. And right, you always associate, and it's interesting, we associate the Apple with knowledge, right? You have Apple, the company,
right?
Their first computer was $666.66 because he liked numbers, right? But it's always been about information, about withholding that. And the Gnostics were like, listen, the reason he didn't want you to gain that knowledge because, right, you have become like what? Like one of us. Who's us? Right? Genesis 3:22. They have become like one of us. What? Let me make sure it's Genesis 3:22 before I look like an idiot. I'm pretty sure it's Genesis 3.
It would make sense. That's like a big number. Like
Genesis 3:22.
Big Masonic number.
The Lord said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. Yeah. Genesis 3:22.
3:22, right under the skull and crossbones, right?
Interesting verse there, right? And it's like, boom, right then and there, it's always been about information. And I love the way you put it, where it's like, the occult is about occulting the knowledge to the initiates, and then those initiates hide it from the non-initiates, who then are wondering what the initiates are doing behind closed doors. Are the Masons really jerking each other off in the lodges? Like, is Paranoid American jerking his buddies off in the Masonic lodges somewhere? Like, we don't know. Right? Huh?
Just these old men just wanking each other, dude. Because like, from my understanding, like, I don't know. I've talked to a few people who are Masons who I would trust, honestly, and they're like, it's just an old man's club where they go drink beer and watch football, at this point, right? Like, what's really directing it and or subverting it, though, that's sort of, if you keep digging, that may be something else.
What was all the baby oil for, though? What was all the baby oil for? Why so many bottles?
Totally above board again, just saying.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so bizarre. But yeah, I love the way you put it there, where it's absolutely, and that's what keeps me going as far as like wanting to research and learn about I want to learn about all cosmologies. But you start to see a pattern too. You start to see like the the same pattern. Like, oh, this is similar to this over here. Or these people. Oh, and this is similar to these. Oh, and that evolved into this. And so, yeah, it's an endless rabbit hole. And I don't know if we'll see if Isaac Newton was right in 2045 or 2040, something like that, whenever he had predicted the end of the world.
That sounds about right, honestly. We got about 50. I think we got about another decade, maybe 15. We're out of this piece, dude. 10 to 15. That seems like a reasonable sentence, you know.
You believe in nukes, bro?
I don't have any reason not to, but yeah, I don't really know. I looked into the flat earth stuff and I thought it was really interesting. I got like super interested in that and curious about it. I had that one dude on my podcast, David
Weiss.
Yeah. And I downloaded his app even too, because I thought it was cool. It was neat because I could see when my friend was awake in Australia. You know what I mean? He's got the clock that just kind of like runs around and it's accurate. And then I asked this astrologer, this like Vedic astrologer who's like really into like computer astrology and all that stuff. I said, hey, you know, like, what are you flat or round, dude? And he was like, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's the same either way. How is that possible? Like, I don't have a mathematical mind, to be honest with you, but I just don't understand how if the earth is flat or round, if it's flat and the sun is doing this and the stars, or if it's round and like, I mean, I just imagine there to be so many more variables if we are spinning on a ball, you know, and so on. No idea. But I think it's simulation's my best guess at this point.
You know, that's why kids will humble you, dude, because they ask these questions that, like, my son, he's 6, and he asks the most bizarre questions, dude, for a 6-year-old. And if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, then you're not doing something right. So it's like he'll ask you. The other day was
president. You know what I'm saying?
The question of the day the other day was I think he asked me, where does God live? Right. And I was like, in the sky, in space? No. Past that. What does God look like? And I was like, nobody knows what God looks like. And he's like, well, if nobody knows what God looks like, then why do people believe in him? Bro, it's 7 a.m. I'm driving him to school.
Right.
All right. I'm like, dude, I can't answer that. I was like, Javi, just because, people believe, and you can't that's not a satisfactory answer for a 6-year-old, because that leads to the next question, the next and the next. The other day he asked me, do bugs throw up? It's like, I've never really thought about that. Do bugs throw up? Like, is that do bugs vomit? Do
Some
bugs
of them do, I think, yeah, and then they like eat it and shit. They're fucking disgusting.
Yes, some bugs vomit, and they do for various reasons. Flies, grasshoppers, bees. These are things.
I'm pretty sure honey is bee vomit. Like, that's pretty much what it is, if I'm not mistaken.
Bumblebees vomit similar to how humans do.
I could be wrong.
Is honey bee vomit? Oh, that's a question that's asked. So no, honey is not bee vomit.
It came right up.
Technically speaking, honey is not bee vomit. The nectar travels down a valve in an expandable pouch called the crop, where it is kept for a short period of time until it is transferred to a receiving back at the hive. So what's honey? As nectar is passed between bees, enzymes in their stomachs break down the nectar into simple sugars. That's amazing, dude. Bees are little alchemists.
Yeah.
They're taking this nectar, processing it within their bodies. Boom.
And then jizzing it out. It's cum.
Just shitting it out. You're eating bee cum.
You're
a bunch of gays eating bee cum.
Bunch of freaks. You didn't even know it. You didn't know how freaky and kinky you were.
Yeah, exactly, dude. So, man, I'm still going, bro. And I'll be honest, I have less answers than I do. I have more questions than I do answers, and I don't feel like I understand any of these topics, right? I'm more well versed than the regular person because obviously the research and the reading that you do, you're going to pick up on knowledge that's already there, right? And you're able to expand on that and uh present your own ideas and your own interpretations. And the thing I was going to say about Frances Yates earlier was that she there's something called the Yates thesis, and she actually started this what the hell they call it? They call it the Yates thought or Yates paradox or something like that. Anyways, she started this movement within the scholarly realm where she made very broad assumptions of certain topics. Like, for example, was one of my favorites, and I did a presentation on Patreon about this, about Shakespeare's Globe Theater, right? Speaking of the Globe, and how it's one of the most famous theaters there is, but we have zero evidence of it other than a little piece that they found in London, I believe. There's no drawings, there's no sketches of it, nothing. There's two pictures of it from a skyline that somebody painted, right, sketched out, and it's there. It's just in the corner. And that's how we know. And it's one of the most famous theaters that there ever was. And she speculates about the what the hell's the name of the book, the Globe Theater, that was the theater laid out in some geometric form to pretty much project the consciousness of its viewers into like another dimension, to spice up the play or whatever. And essentially, this first theater was what would eventually become what we know as a stage nowadays, and what would eventually become movie theater, right? So she speculates on that, and that's such a broad speculation. Like, oh, was there some occult magic that he learned from John Dee and the mathematical proportions that they put into this theater? Did it have some effect on the people? And so she makes these crazy assumptions, and because of her work, this is something that is now accepted, and like, well, now we can build upon that. Like, there's no set thing. She mostly talked about esotericism during the Elizabethan age and 16th century, the magic and the occult, and the how hermeticism and the impact that had during that time, and how that eventually evolved into Christianity. But she set forth this paradigm of almost like opening up people's minds in the scholarly realm. Some people discredit her work because of her overactive imagination, right, into the esoteric and the occult. But like now they call it the Yates thesis, where it's like, well, it's kind of open for interpretation, some sort of, which is good, because instead of ridiculing her and making fun of her work, they're kind of like, well, this is what she presented. And that same way that we look at this subject, we can look at other subjects, like whatever other magical or mystical esoteric subject, with a more open mind, I guess you could say. So she quite literally shaped reality, like, in some sort of way, with her writings about these esoteric and occult topics. And she's not really that talked about, and her work is wild, dude. She was onto some shit. But the way she was able to shift that thought, and like now it's like common practice.
Hmm.
So yeah, dude. The I call it the imaginal theaters, where I speculated in my own interpretation of like, well, maybe, right, William Shakespeare's fake and gay, whatever, and maybe uh, it's the most bizarre thing, bro, because I speculated that these theaters weren't actual theaters, that they were more of these imaginal theaters, these altered states, right? These things that these secret society, these companies, bro, that would get together. Then companies were groups of actors. And check this out. The most bizarre thing was happening, because there was a point in time where Shakespeare, or we're talking about Diddy earlier, Shakespeare and his companies were doing private plays. And they had special theaters built just for private plays. And they would rival other acting companies. What does that sound like? Sounds like secret societies getting together, sharing some occult knowledge behind closed doors, and well, how the Bloods and the Crips don't get along. Well, Shakespeare's acting company wasn't getting along with Joe Schmo's acting company over there. I break it down in the episode, but I was like, this is crazy. Of how private plays for who? Did they have lube there? They have 1,000 bottles of lube there and baby oil. You know,
Theater kids can get pretty weird,
it's
theater kid wars.
bizarre.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I mean, that makes sense. I could totally see that. I think that, the thespian world or the
Yes,
world of make believe in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, clearly leading the
that's what is
charge
Hollywood now.
to creating illusions or ideas or memes or right. We get back to mimetic magic,
100%, dude.
Yeah,
It's so
which is
bizarre.
it is bizarre, but like I think that's part of the allure too, is like we know like intuitively that it works and it's fun to kind of do, right? Like at the end, that process, that little magic trick that you can cook up or whatever, it's fun to play. People love to suspend disbelief.
The
And
most famous theater. Where are the plants? We don't got any.
Hmm.
What? What? Yeah, we found a little pillar that kind of looks like it was the remnants of it. All right.
Talk about a troll.
Okay.
Sure.
It's stuff like that keeps me going. I'm like, what? No, and nobody who the hell's looking into the Globe Theater of Shakespeare? How many people do you know that have read about that?
Homie, I don't know anybody. Everybody's so freaking zombied out on TikTok. They don't know what to do other than just dance for a cell phone. You know what I'm saying? Like there's not.
Yeah, I just finished watching the Mormon Housewives with the wife on Hulu. Apparently the
What'd you think? I probably won't watch it, so spoil away.
it's retarded, dude.
Well, that's no surprise. That's no spoiler.
I mean, they're more. So what more do you expect? It's like, again, another cult of this guy who he could only read the tablets, and then where are the tablets? The angels took it. What? How convenient. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay. And like I speculated yesterday. I've been streaming on Twitch every Tuesday night, and on my backup YouTube channel, I've been just playing different games. Trying to look at the mythology and the occult in these new video games. It's just mostly me sucking and the chat making fun of me. But last night, the idea of the concept of Enochian came up, right? Speaking of John D. And I was like, what's really interesting? That John D, he could talk to angels, and they represented this Enochian language that Adam knew in paradise, and the last person to know the language was Enoch, right? And then after Enoch, the next people to know the language was John D. and Edward Kelly. Okay, that's a big gap there in time, right? From Enoch to 16th century. Okay, whatever. Who cares? And I was like, if this language is to speak to celestial entities, these interdimensional beings that guard their own dimensions, right? It's interesting that you can translate Enochian from Enochian to English. That's weird. I mean, how convenient, right? Like
Right.
how so you can take a celestial language and then break it into English. I guess. Like, how does that make any sense? Isn't God, aren't angels and these things supposed to be beyond our comprehension? But yet there was this guy who in the 16th century was speaking to them, and they passed down the alphabet. And you could use Enochian. You can talk in Enochian. You can break it all. Every letter and has its own sound, and they use it in ceremonial magic, and apparently it works.
That's crazy.
I don't know. So here we are, dude, and I'm gonna continue the journey because there's so much to get at, so little time, and I find it all so fascinating, dude, the way that history works and what was in these people's minds. And I want to at least try and understand it just a little bit, you know.
Well, no, dude, you have such a wide
Good spread, you know. Good
yeah,
spread.
you got a good spread, man. It's a good spread, you know. Like, yeah, like, and it just, yeah, such a wide field of research that you've done. It's
Conspiracal.
really cool. Yeah, it's very, very cool, man. I love what you're doing. I'm glad you're going to keep going, and I love that you fuse it into something creative. And yeah, you were also Twitch streaming. You're doing that with Joe Roop some. Is that true?
Yeah, Joe's always in with me, and we just last night we were talking about the alchemical secrets of the hot pocket and how what were all the Joe's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore, and he
Sensitive
proceeded
subject.
to talk about it for the next hour and a half, and I'm like, bro, shut up. If you don't want to talk about something else. He's like, I'm so angry right now, and I'm like, dude, what were the baby bottles, the baby oil for? Like, well, why so many bottles? So it's always a trip, dude. I always have fun Tuesday nights. But yeah, Joe Roop is usually on there with me, and yeah, every Tuesday night I go live.
Word. Well, I'll find that link and I'll put it in the description of the video, and also your website. And yeah, just tell everybody one more time where they can find you everywhere on all the platforms. TJ OJP.
Yeah, tjojp.com. And if you pretty much Google Juan on Juan podcast, there's not many podcasts named that. So
No, there's not.
I'll come up. YouTube. I am shadow banned on a lot of places. So if you Google it and it doesn't come up, it's all good. But yeah, tjojp.com has all my links, and I have a link tree too. I can send you all that. I can email it to you.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'll stick all that in the description. And yeah, man, I appreciate it. I love what you're exploring. You always blow my mind, and I feel like I've like explored pretty deep into some of these concepts. But every time we talk, like, you blow my mind with some crazy ass shit, and I'm knee deep in the woo, but like, you're fucking into this world of stuff that I have sometimes never even thought to consider. So
yeah, my wife doesn't like when I go to her work parties because and dude, it's so weird because I'll just sit there, right? And I can't. I'm not an extroverted person. I'm an introvert, right? And I have issues with like public speaking. That's why I did the stand up, just to try and get over it. So I applaud you, bro. I admire that you're able to do that sort of thing, stand in front of a crowd and host it and all that, because it's not easy. I've been there, and I think people were pity laughing at me, maybe because they knew it was my first time, where I announced it before I jumped on. So maybe they were laughing just because, hey, it's his first time, whatever. Maybe, who knows? I don't know. All right. But it's weird because I can't have conversations with people, and whenever I go to one of her like Christmas parties or whatever, I'll just sit there and her boss's husband, he knows like what I'm into, right? So he'll sometimes lean over and be like, so what do you think of the Old Testament? Or like something, because he knows where I'm gonna go. He knows, right? So he's one of them. But other than that, I'll just sit there and sip on my. It's usually like open tab or whatever at these things. So I'll just drink beer. I can't drink beer now because I shit my pants. But I think I developed like a gluten allergy or something. And dude, if I drink Yingling, which is my favorite beer, I won't stop shitting. It's the craziest thing. Like, it's wild. But yeah, she kind of like gives me the side eye of like, she knows where I can go with this sort of stuff. And I'm like, hey, ever hear about a homunculus?
That's right. You're like the dealer.
A what?
The conspiracy dealer.
Yeah, exactly. So you want me to, I got the red pill or the blue pill. They're both gonna blow your mind. But how, and that's the thing. You got to ease it in some. Maybe that's why there was so much baby oil, because you got to ease it in sometimes.
Yeah,
sometimes
that's why
you do. And I test the waters with people too, right? Like today, I was like, I was at a meeting today, and I kind of tested the waters a little bit with the guy, and I was like, he was like, oh, this is for this, and I was like, so blah blah blah. seeing where he would go with it, and he didn't take my base. I was like, all right, I'm gonna chill out with this guy. I'm not gonna go there. You know, like this might be an NPC. No, I'm kidding. The guy was a nice guy, but yeah, dude.
Yeah, no, you're like the dude. You're like, hey, this one's fake. This one's gay. Take them both. Here
They're
you
both
go.
the
Here
same.
you go.
They're one and the same. They don't know that.
There you go. There you go. The dude in the corner party meme. You know what I mean? They don't know.
These people don't even know I know about the homunculus, right?
They don't know, dude. No, that's awesome, dude. No, it's a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much, dude, for hanging out with me for a bit. And yeah, I'll put all the links down below. Y'all go check out everything Juan's doing. It's awesome. Super fascinating, dude. Keep up the great work. Thank you so much.
Great work.
Hell yeah. That's right. All y'all out there, keep up that great work.
That's right.
And we'll see y'all very soon. Much love.
Later.